Nasıl olacak ya? Okay, now it's better. Good. Encoder preset. When I lowered the encoder preset, it becomes okay. So let's change this back to 100,000 kilobits, and let's see it worsens again. Yeah, it worsens again, so I'm gonna have to make this 10K. Okay. Now it's okay, right? Now it's okay. Now it must be okay. Make this. Please, 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 please. Yes, good, good, good. Yay, 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 yay. Yeah, no problem with the image quality. All right, we are live. We are live. Today, we are looking at some Quran errors, some scientific errors from the Quran. Let's decide which one should we discuss first. Which one should we discuss? We have creation days. How many days Allah created the earth? Creation order. Did he create the heaven or the earth first? There are different verses say differently. Length of a day, flat earth, heart reasoning. Yes, it says in the Quran says the heart is the organ for thinking. Okay, let's do that. Yes, let's do this. Heart reasoning. So, in this verse, in Surah Al-Araf, verse 179 says, They have hearts with which they do not understand, They have eyes with which they do not see, and they have ears with which they do not hear. So this verse clearly assigns literal cognitive and sensory functions to specific organs, right? The heart is said to be for reasoning and understanding, the ears for hearing, and the eyes for seeing. Of course, the most common defense is to claim that this was symbolic. But this doesn't work as well as it sounds. One second. Okay, so this doesn't work as well as it sounds, because this was literally the belief of that time. Okay, this was literally the belief of that time. And so, and when you look at the verse, for example, if heart is like symbolic, your will or your soul doesn't want this, that kind of meaning. If that's the case, then why is it that the two of the other things are literal? Two of the three things here that believers do are literal. Why do we just straightforwardly says this third one? Why do we only choose this to be metaphorical? Doesn't make any sense. So the verse is, let me say it again. Let me read it again. They have hearts with which they do not understand. They have ears with which they do not see, and they have ears with which they do not hear. Now think about this. That this is the verse, and also this is the belief. This is the literal belief of people of that time. When you consider these things, it doesn't sound like it is metaphorical, because when you use metaphorical language, there must be a common sense in your audience, so they would understand what you're saying. They would understand you put this in a more beautiful way, more striking way, So we don't have that. It is very strange. You understand, you feel the need to, do make these metaphors, make these things. Yeah, you use this kind of thing to when you know that people will see that there's it is delivered in a more beautiful way, more powerful way. If that's not the case, why are you telling this in this way? It is obvious they will surely understand this literally. So what's the point? Yeah, and why only the first one? It is so straightforward. They don't think with their hearts. They don't see with their eyes. They don't hear with their ears. So when you consider these things, it is actually not a case where this is a metaphor, thinking with heart. No, it is not. What did I wrote here? The Quran never once mentions the brain. Okay? I mean, why is it that also not the case? Why is it always that we need to defend these things by saying metaphorical, but while it would be so easy to give something that truly uh, couldn't be knowledged by people of that time. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? Why is it that we are the ones always have to change the meanings and defend these things by saying it is metaphorical? It straightforwardly says this ridiculous thing, and also that that is literally the belief of people of that time, and they will take it literally. Why is it this always the case? Why cannot it just say they don't use their heads, they don't use their brains? Why doesn't it say that? Or a clear implication, other verses, the clear things that Quran uses this heart as metaphor. But that is also not the case. Most classical exegetes like Al-Tabari, Ibn Kathir, Qurtubi, Baghawi interpreted verses mentioning reasoning with heart, this verse, according to their apparent meaning, in the line with Arabic usage where heart was the seat of intellect, reflection, and understanding. So, after several centuries, all those great classical commentaries, they also understood this literally. So if your only reason to claim something is metaphorical, after learning that it is not true, if that is the only reason you're claiming so, then it is not a valid excuse. I'm sorry. It's not a valid excuse. If your only reason, this obviously scientifically wrong verse is actually metaphorical, is after learning the fact that if we take this literally, it is wrong. It is scientifically wrong. If that's your only reasoning, then that's not a valid excuse. Okay? This reinterpreted, so naturally this interpretation came only after learning this modern facts. It only came with this modern time. Otherwise, because if we are honest to ourselves, that's obvious. It's obvious that Arabs, we know for a fact that this is the main belief. They believed that heart was the organ of thinking. So we know for a fact that yes, this is why it said so. We know that. Yeah, not only Arabs, but surrounding civilizations also. They also have this belief and used it in the same way. So they used it in the same way. Why do we only take this one metaphorical? Quran uses the exact same language and framework they did. You cannot just assume it's the metaphorical after the fact. You need a strong indication for claiming why this one is metaphorical. Okay, so this is the heart Here is the heart going. Yes, this is the heart verse. Let me check out the stream. No one's watching. Yay. Love it. Now let's talk about shooting stars, mountains, origin of semen, four kettles. Let's talk about mountains. Yeah. Now the Quran says mountains prevent earthquakes. All right. And Quran says mountains prevent earthquakes. And the so the verse 31 verse 10 says, he cast into the earth firmly set mountains, lest it should shake with you. So this obviously means, you would understand this as mountains prevent earthquakes. If you heard this before, then you probably also heard the defense attempts Muslims use. Most popular defense attempt is that, what was it? Apologies, most look. No. Yeah, the first thing apologists say, or Muslims say, is that this doesn't talk about a complete prevention, but rather just a little bit reducing the effects, a little de-amplification. So let's analyze this. Let's deep down on this claim. But before getting into this verse, let's think about this mentality before. Why did we suddenly understand? I mean, not that this claim is wrong, this claim doesn't work, but why is it that we suddenly understood this, why did we suddenly understand lest it should shake with you as a little stabilization? It's not in the verse. When you read the verse, it means mountains prevent earthquakes. All right. So this is the first thing. So what they do here is just arbitrarily doing anything, changing the meaning, nitpicking the scientific knowledge, and just find something that matches. So when we expand the meaning, we may find something that corresponds to that expanded meaning, right? So that's why we are expanding. So this is the mentality. We decide the meaning according to what we can find. If we can find something mountains stabilize, then we will go like, this is. So we are looking for something. We are looking for something that is relatively close, according to our opinion, something relatively close to mountains preventing earthquakes. We found something stabilizing. Then, so this is what the verse talks about. So this is our mentality. This is why actually none of these arguments work. You brought nothing from the Quran that actually shows that this verse means stabilization. Okay, this is the first thing. Second is that despite this knowledge is not completely wrong, it is, as always, Muslims only took the part. Yeah, it is still invalid because Muslims only took the part where it's in their favor. In reality, yes, mountains prevent, or mountains can have some reduce effect, some de-amplification, some scattering the waves, these kind of effects. They can also amplify the earthquakes. And the amplification in here, actually, it gets debunked because you see both effects. All right, but actually it gets better, because better for me, worse for them. It actually amplifies more than it de-amplifies. Rate of the de-amplification, the rate of the amplification is greater than the rate of the amplification, de-amplification. Okay, so it amplifies more than it de-amplifies. The rate is greater. Also, amplification happens more often. It happens more often anyways. When happens, it happens more significantly than when the amplification happens. Okay, and third of all, it affects broader areas. So you need more specific conditions to a mountain to de-amplify an earthquake, like soil material matters. Where is the center of the earthquake? What kind of waves, S waves or anything? So what kind of waves? Where does it hit to mountains back, which side of mountains, and which side the city positioned? For example, generally it also that there also must be a valley near mountain, and the city will be in that valley. So that valley is degree, the degree of closeness, close degree. At what point is the city? These kind of things. It is actually so hard to see a case where this mountains destabilize the amplify an earthquake in any relevant amount, in any significant amount. But you can so easily see a mountain amplify and make an earthquake more destructive. Yes. So actually with this, it goes to the trash, this argument. Are there other arguments, other defenses? Yes, Muslims say a lot of things about this issue because it is very important. This shows so obviously that Quran has a mistake. This is very popular. And this defense, this stabilization defense is very popular. Then still 0. Another thing. So that there are other kinds of defenses, but all of them fall under the same category. They all like this. They are all like this. And also, who cares after, you know, mountains, earthquakes happen in mountains areas and mountains amplify earthquakes. After these facts, who cares if some little de-amplification in something? You also see amplification. So what? Why do we only take that? You will always see more destabilization mountains cause. So how can you how can you cling to some stupid anecdote, you know? Let's take one, for example, isostasy. They say, oh, isostasy, there are isostasy mountains, when they get higher, they yeah, so it is not something mountains cause and mountains stabilize. No, it is an it is just an it is a form of leveling which involves mountains, but saying mountains cause this would be wrong, because that not leveled thing is that topography. So that's stupid. Yeah, I mean that isostasy, yes, mountains wait because of, but if there was no mountain, that need for isostasy wouldn't also be there. Okay, so mountains cause isostasy as much as isostasy causes mountains. It's like that. So there is not an external thing and existence of mountains make it stabilized. But again, always think this, okay? Always go back to the first thing, which is, I mean, who cares? Who cares after the fact that earthquakes happen in mountainous areas and mountains cause earthquake to amplify earthquakes? After these two facts, who cares if there is something mountains stabilize? I mean, if we dig deeper, won't we again find something mountains destabilize? Of course we will. So you don't consider that. Even at first we saw mountains destabilize. The things mountains destabilize are more. And then you, again, with a biased research, you find something mountains stabilize. Don't you think when we look objectively, we will still find something mountains destabilize? We will still find one. But also, like I said before, even if we don't find, even if some little things we find that mountains stabilize, it will still not matter. It won't matter because there's a huge thing here. Mountains amplify earthquakes and earthquakes happen in mountainous areas. But nevertheless, let's look at another one. It goes like this. Mountains work as pegs. Mountains work as pegs. And you know, they have root-like things. So some mountains, not all of them, as far as I know, but most of them have this, you know, both plates crash and the higher one makes mountain, but we also have this the piece where it goes down. So they have roots. We can see them as roots, okay? And so they say that those roots cause, to act as roots to magma and stabilize the crust's motion on magma. Just completely wrong. I don't know where did they get this information from. I heard this a lot, but it is just wrong. That's not a thing. That those roots don't go this much. So that's again wrong. Now, another thing, another one. They work as gravitational pegs. Again, with zero, absolutely zero support. I saw a lot of people say this. Just not true. Mountains don't stabilize the Earth's gravitation in any sense. Let's move on. Another one. How was it? Oh yes. Mountains caused a general stabilization over billions of years. Again, just wrong. But I mean, again, think about this. You find this from a biased research. We know this. This is obvious. So, I mean, you need to dig this deeper to find one thing mountains stabilize. Don't you think when I also look this much, when I dig deeper this much, won't I also find things like these that mountains destabilize? So why doesn't that count? Why won't those things count? So this is the thing. We just look deeper. We make a stupid, a ridiculous interpretation. We find a almost irrelevant scientific fact while ignoring the more important facts and just, this is what the verse talks about. So it is never objective. They are never objective. So of course, I mean, if we look for, almost all the time that mountains existed, and for all this lifetime of mountains, we look something. I mean, it would be actually stupid. It would be impossible to not find something that they don't stabilize in any sense. No, it is normal that you will find what they do in both cases. In favor of both cases, we will find something they, relatively stabilize and relatively destabilize. So this is the thing. I mean, we just not. So this is how they interpret these things. This is just a biased research, nothing else. What is more natural? What is more natural than when you find for 2-3 billions of years all the aspects of mountains, all the things that are caused by mountains, there is nothing more natural than finding something, some irrelevant thing, probably completely irrelevant from earthquakes, totally irrelevant from earthquakes, which mountains stabilize in some sense. But we will also, pretty sure, we will also find things that they destabilize. So this is why these are never valid. Let's look at another one. This is the funniest one. Mountains cause some stabilization in weather. They seriously say this. There are people, I saw real people say this. This verse, they say this verse where mountains, we set upon earth, firmly set mountains, lest it should shake with you. Lest it should shake with you means mountains little stabilize weather. So do you see the problem here? We just look at the data, whatever we can find, until we find something that is relatively, that can be, in any sense, so loose, in a so loose way, type of understanding, in some possible way we can see as something close. Until then, we keep looking. You find all the other data, no, they don't matter. Until you find something that you can see as stabilization. You can see close to, you can see close to what the verse says. It clearly says it prevents earthquakes. It prevents earthquakes. You look for, something stabilizes. You just arbitrarily decided that you can take stabilization and look for something stabilized. Then you look for something mountains stabilize, but completely irrelevant from earthquakes. So why is there shake here? Shake with you. Why is it that it says shake? And why did we not include? Why did we ignore those facts where mountains, earthquakes happen in mountains areas? So we arbitrarily decide. For example, if it would say, after all those things, let's assume that, who said you can take weather as mountains stabilize? Who said you can understand this verse? This verse, he has cast into the earth firmly set mountains, lest it should shake with you, as mountains stabilize the weather, which is also not true. I said that, I said it would be normal for you to find something that mountains stabilize, but somehow they are so unlucky that somehow there's nothing, almost nothing that mountains actually stabilize. God really doesn't like Muslims. So, but let it be mountains stabilize the weather. Would it really matter? How can you claim, how did you decide that you could take some stabilization as what this verse talks about? How did you understand this is not about earthquake? How did you understand this is not about something on the land? Because it also says earth So the meaning here is the ground won't shake with you. This earth here means this. The ground won't shake with you. Okay? So how did you decide that it can be something that completely irrelevant from earthquakes, earthquakes and ground soil? Then you can decide, okay, you can take weather. So all these things are arbitrary. Do you see the pattern here? We just arbitrarily deciding until something in our minds, according to us, find something that is close. That is close. We also force the meaning of closeness, by the way. So in any sense, we keep looking until we can claim that there is a fact that can be interpreted as what this verse talks about. Until we find one scientific fact like that, we just keep looking. When we find the opposite, just ignore it and keep looking. Earthquakes happen in mountainous areas, or just ignore it and look at scientific facts. Then you find one, you thought you find one, that mountains stabilize earthquakes. This is what it is talking about. Then you realized that's not actually the case. It actually amplifies more. Then again, ignore it. We just ignore it and just keep looking. This is the pattern. This is the mentality. And this is the mentality of every defense to every scientific error in the Quran. This is how they find all those answers. And you know how they gaslight and do taqiyas, do psychological games like, oh, you don't know this, you don't know Arabic. What is this? What is in here is about Arabic. What in here means that you can ignore all those things. But when you, this mentality, this is ad hoc mentality and Texan sharpshooter fallacy. So there is nothing in here about Arabic. When something is about Arabic, it is still this meaning. Because, again, when Arabic involves, you still do this. Like I said, you, for example, look for any way to find some claim that some scientific knowledge is, relatively close to this verse. So you look for every way to claim this. So when it is possible to change the meaning, you do that either, like you did here. It actually obviously means that earthquakes are prevented by mountains. So you did the same thing here. You arbitrarily said it's stabilization because in that way maybe you could find something. So you change the meaning after, realizing that in that way, in that meaning, you cannot claim that it is scientifically true. So when there is more Arabic involved, You do this more. Like, this word can mean this. It is actually, when you look at the context, when you look at classical Arabic, when you look at, other verses, how did they used, Arabs used this verse, this word in this kind of context. It is actually obvious that that verse is in that specific meaning. But only after realizing the scientific error, you suddenly change the meaning. All the commentaries, all the tafsirs, all that, lexicons, etc. Everything, scientific, linguistic, historical data, everything is just thrown away. Everything is just thrown away, and this word means this. Just because it can mean this. I mean, so this is not about knowing Arabic, okay? Actually, the people who claim this, know less Arabic. You just look for, this word, this meaning is also possible. So what? Just because some meaning is possible doesn't mean you can just choose it, right? So that's how it goes. Again, it is possible that when you choose that meaning, you can claim that it coincides with some scientific fact. You can claim that it is close to some scientific fact. That is the only reason you choose that meaning, and just claim that this is what the verse means. So you change the meaning according to, in order to claim some scientific fact, some nitpicked scientific fact is what the verse talks about. So this is always the tactic. This is always the mentality. So this is why all those gaslightings Muslims do, oh, learn Arabic. You don't know Islamic tradition. You don't know Arabic. All stupid answers, none of them are valid. None of them are valid. Those verses are obviously wrong, scientifically wrong. And that's just the case, because the Quran is man-made. All right? Should we end the... Okay, I think we can end the live stream right now. I will be doing this more. I will be doing this more often because I enjoy it and we need more content like this. So, goodbye, and be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, do everything to make my fighting against religion easier.